So we've taken a look at the type of cube we're going to build, the size of the cube we're going to be wanting to make, plus also having a look at the skeleton itself of what the cube compromises of. So in this video we're going to be putting some meat onto the bones and taking a dive into archetypes and deck types to support in the cube. Hello and welcome to Life Begins at 20. My name is Mark and thank you so much for joining me. Now, just before we get started with the video, I just want to make sure everybody is up to speed and at the same level. So if you've missed any of the other Cube Build Along series videos, there'll be a card on the screen now for the playlist, so you can make sure you've watched all of the previous videos, ready to get started into this next step. For those of you who have watched all of the videos, it's now time to dive into those archetypes, so without any further ado, let's get stuck in. Each colour in Magic has a distinct style of play. White is all about cheap, efficient creatures that are backed up through protection spells and cantrips to push combat in your favour. Blue specialises in counter magic, drawing cards and disrupting your opponent, often making them replay the same cards, all while setting up the win. Black is a colour that will try to win by any means necessary, whether this is sacrificing your own creatures or life total to power its spells. Removal and bringing your creatures back from the graveyard is often its game plan. Red's game plan, on the other hand, is to deal as much damage to the opponent as quickly as possible, with direct damage spells and hasty creatures, all while destroying everything in its path. And lastly, green is the colour which generates a lot of mana to create swarms of creatures or massive creatures to overpower the game, alongside ways to make them even bigger. Each of these colours has many different ways in order to achieve their goals, and with the introduction of the 10 two-colour guilds as well, you can really add a lot of depth and variety into your cube. The next thing for you to think about is what you'd like each of these colours to do. Now, you could either be looking at it as the 5 main colours, or if you're incorporating multicoloured ones as well, all of those 10 guilds too. Each of these will have a primary role, but they'll also have secondary roles as well. Now, you can either determine whether these are simply put down to aggro, midrange or control deck types, or later down the line you can then have a look at making these into archetypes themselves as well. That is completely down to you. The thing I like to do first is literally put these into a table to kind of formulaically say what I'd like each of the primary roles and secondary roles of each of these colour combinations to do. So for the pauper cube I'm looking to create, it would look something like this. So I would go through this table and really think about what of the colours I'd actually like them to have. Now, for example, you don't have to copy this. You could say, for example, you wanted blue to be more of an aggro as its main feature and control to be a secondary feature. You might want white to be more of a control colour and aggro to be secondary. It's completely down to you how you would like to have the gameplay of all of these different colours. Now, you can pause the video at any point in time on this page to have a look and see, as a rough template, what I'm going to be doing, but again you can kind of take a look to see, as an overall picture, what it is you might actually want to achieve. So now that we've outlined the roles that each of these colours could be playing, it's time to dive a little bit further and see if there are actually archetypes we would like to be playing. So now that you have your roles figured out for each of these colours, you may find that these are a little bit broad and you'd like to actually narrow it down a little bit and create a little bit of identity within your cube, or just having a way to narrow down the actual number of cards you're going to be looking at. Magic is full of amazing mechanics and tribes for you to really personalise the way you want your cube to play. You've got everything from soldiers to zombies, flyers, spells matter, blink, reanimator, burn, and so many more amazing different ways that you can play this game. You really do have so much variety to really personalise your cubes. Choosing an archetype, it really helps you to narrow down your focus in terms of the cards you need to be looking at for your cube. Maybe for the colours blue and white, you might like to incorporate cards that contain both colours, which belong to the AZORIUS guild. The Blink archetype is one example of this to help gain value from your creatures from enter the battlefield effects, chump blocking non-trample creatures and then flickering them out, and also dodging removal. In Pauper, cards like Momentary Blink, Deputy of the Acquittals in that guild help support the others like Ghostly Flicker, Snap, Core Skyfisher, Otherworldly Journey and so many more. Swinging across then to the Is It Guild, which is a red and blue combination, maybe you're looking into pushing the Spells Matter archetype further to create more of a payoff for those counter spells, hand disruption and burn spells from the mono colours themselves. Cards like Nivix Cyclops, Wee Drogonaut and Is It Chronarch do a great job of backing up these spells and other payoff creatures in the mono colours. So these are just a couple of examples of archetypes you could use for your cubes. Now if you want to have a fuller discussion on archetypes themselves and really dive into the topic, there'll be a card on the screen now for my Inside the Cube series, which goes into archetypes and specific ones in far more detail, so it is definitely worth checking out. So for the channel's Pauper Cube, I've been through and I've decided which archetypes I'd actually like to support. While Pauper doesn't have access to as many of the archetypes as higher powered cubes, don't let that fool you from there not being some great support for so many of amazing ones there are. So you saw the table beforehand of what an overall kind of look as your basic one as possible with aggro, midrange and control, and now this is the updated one as to which of the archetypes I've actually supported in the cube. Now this is just at the planning stage again, but each of these archetypes and decisions I'll go through quickly now so you can see what my decision making process was, and feel free to pause the video here if you'd like to use this table as a guide. So in white, aggro remains a primary role for this colour through the use of cheap creatures, or could be otherwise known as white weenies. In Pauper there's a lot of soldiers available to us, so I'm looking to utilise cards like War Falcon, Veteran Armoursmith and Veteran Swordsmith as potential armour cards and payoffs for using soldiers. Control is going to be the secondary role for this colour, and there are plenty of creatures and spells and enchantments that either tap down creatures or remove them entirely, and it's certainly going to be supported. Whether you love or hate the colour blue, it is extremely good at one role in general, and that is control. Through the use of counter spells, bounce, removal, deck manipulation and card draw, this colour has everything you need to impose yourself on the board, which is why it's the primary role for blue for me. As a secondary role of blue, we have bounce. This utilised many of the bounce creatures, making your opponents have to replay the same cards, all while you end up growing the board presence. If done well, we have a potential tempo deck here. Through the use of cards like Mana War, Mistraven, Vapor Snag and more, we can gain a lot of value at the expense of the opponent, plus utilising those evasive creatures to Ninja of the D-Powers in for an added bonus. With an absolute abundance of removal and hand disruption, black's primary role for me in this cube will be control. There's so much targeted removal, and with Crypt Rats and Pestilence there are some of Pauper's only board wipes. Add into this reanimation spells to get your creatures back from the graveyard and you've got yourself a really strong variety of options here. The secondary role for black I'm looking to support is aggro. Black has access to some really strong evasive cheap creatures that can pile onto the opponent, being backed up with the removal and disruption suite of black, and you've got yourself a good chance to do well here. Red and aggro often come hand in hand. With lots of cheap, hasty and evasive creatures and cheap burn spells, it's a no-brainer to make sure this is supported as its primary role. The secondary role for red in my eyes is a burn deck. While Is It later on really takes spells matter further, I wanted to have plenty of options to have more spells heavy burn deck with payoff cards that help push this further. So the likes of Thermo Alchemist, Kiln Fiend and Firebrand Archer really help make this suite of red spells even more impactful. Ramp is the bread and butter for green, and for its primary role I wanted to support that. Being able to ramp up quickly with the likes of mana elves and spells to reach huge creatures to trample through your opponent is something I always want to promote in Cube. Plenty of payoffs available to us at the top end really lets us have some fun. Midrange is the secondary role for this colour. As good as the ramp theme is for green, I also wanted to make sure that wasn't the only thing you can do with that colour. I wanted to make sure there was a midrange deck with potential hexproof creatures too, as a good way to withstand the early bombardment from an aggro deck, whilst also having different ways to beat control. Plenty of great creatures and enchantments also allow us to get there. So moving on into the multicoloured guilds now, and Blink is the primary role for the AZORIUS guild, and that's the blue-white colour pairing, as mentioned earlier in the video, and it is one of my favourite archetypes in Cube. I love being able to gain additional value from my creatures alongside protecting them and clearing the path if needed. It's just a really fun mechanic, and there are plenty of reasons to splash payoffs in other colours too. So the secondary archetype that is supported with these two colours is more with a tempo aspect of them, and that is blue-white flyers. There are plenty of flyers within the two colours that fit into a multitude of decks, and with the bounce effects to help clear away, it's a great option to have. Aggro is the primary theme of Boros, and with plenty of cheap creatures, haste enablers and token generators. Having these and going wide with Anthem effects certainly makes this a potent combination of colours. For me, blue and black have access to the most control cards, whether this be removal, counter spells or hand disruption. Adding good blockers, bounce and card draw, and you'll understand why control is the primary role of Dimir. Moving on to Golgari, and for me the primary theme of this guild is utilising the graveyard to your benefit. There is a wide variety of graveyard recursion alongside cycle and self-sacrifice creatures to really generate some advantage. Add on top plenty of removal and delve, and you've got a combination that could really do well for you later on in the game. For the secondary role here is a green-black mid-range deck, and with black's plethora of removal and green's big creatures, it's a potent combination to really overwhelm your opponent. The primary role for red and green, which is the Gruul Guild, is Aggro or Stompy, whichever one you'd like to call this. With plenty of haste and trample creatures available and a whole suite of removal and pump spells, this combination can do some serious work. Rancor for me would be incredible in this setup. Whilst you may not see Gruul as a ramp colour, the secondary role for it is to ramp up with green, playing plenty of creatures and utilising the splash of red to deal a lot of damage utilising X-cost spells. This can be quite a potent combination. For the primary role of red and blue, also known as Izzet, we have the Spells Matter archetype. Red and blue have access to a wide array of powerful spells, arguably the most powerful in Pauper. Utilising these and payoff cards like Nivix Cyclops, Weedroggonauts and Izzet Chronarch, this will do some serious work alongside their mono-coloured variants. Moving on to black-white or Orzhov, control is the primary role of this colour combination. These colours have access to a wide array of removal spells, plus with extort creatures and life gain, this makes for a strong combination of the two colours. The secondary role of Orzhov for me is a tempo disruption style of deck, utilising many evasive creatures alongside the wide range of removal and hand disruption to get through for the win. Black-red is a great colour combination, and control for me is the primary role I wanted to achieve with this guild. With a wide array of removal, hand disruption and direct damage spells is perfectly suited to a control deck. Cards like Blightning really do sum up what the guild wants to do. Aggro is a secondary role for this guild as it has access to a wide variety of cheap aggressive creatures and direct damage spells to really push through for the win. While not being the primary role, I still wanted it to be perfectly viable. So moving on to Silesia, also known as white-green, we have something a little bit different in the archetypes with hexproof enchantments. So in a nutshell, which you can probably guess, is utilising plenty of hexproof creatures and then powering them up or defending them with enchantments and utilising removal to push through for the win. Each colour has ways to get some of these enchantments back from the graveyard too, plus with access to Rancor, it will do some serious work for us. Lastly, we come to the Simic Guild, which is the colours blue and green. With access to a lot of ramp great creatures, plus the colour with the best card draw and deck manipulation, the ramp archetype had to be the primary role for this colour combination. Bouncing away the opponent's blockers or giving your massive creatures evasion through enchantments can certainly make this a potent combination. So there is an introduction of how you can flesh out your cube and really start to define what it is you want each of the colours to do and the playstyles you'd like to incorporate. These early stages, I can't stress how important they are in really helping you to plan out the stages and really define what it is you actually want to do, because this will save you so much time later down the line where you start putting cube cards into a cube and you go, yeah, I'll put all of these in, you'll see what happens, and then you've got to replan afterwards. I mean, these early stages, as much as there is a lot of them and there's a lot of things to be actually planning, it will save you so much time in the long run and really help develop your cube even further. Now, not going to say that the actual things that you do, so all the different archetypes and all of the different things that you're planning to put into your cube, they won't necessarily be the only things that your cube is capable of. And don't be surprised if your players in your play group actually end up finding alternate deck types or ideas of ways of actually playing them. That's perfectly normal, and to be perfectly honest, it might actually be a huge benefit in the way that you've created the cube, they've seen these deck type coming up, and you go, actually that looks really, really fun, I'd actually like to help support that more. And you go, well, I'm not really enjoying this archetype in this colour combination, so you can then take cards out, help support other bits and pieces as well. And it's really, a cube is an ever evolving process, which is what makes the format so much fun. And I hope you are enjoying the content and the way that cube is as a format even further going down the line. I can't wait to see all of the different finished cubes by the end of this series as well, and I really can't wait to get stuck in and actually finish this pauper cube, get playing with it, because it's going to be so much fun. Let me know in the comments section below which archetypes are your favourites and which ones you'll actually be wanting to put into your cubes. I'd be very interested to see what everybody's favourites are, and I'm sure there's probably going to be maybe 1 or 2 archetypes that end up being a hell of a lot more popular than others, but it would be very interesting to see what that one is. So definitely let me know in the comments section below what that is, and also, you know, if you've got any questions and you don't understand certain parts of the video, please do let me know in the comment section or email me, and I'll be more than happy to explain things even further. And I'm sure other members of the community as well can help answer your questions too. So in the next video of this cube build along series, we're going to be going over the next really important step in my eyes. Again, it's another planning step, and that is the mana curve of the cube and how it really affects the gameplay style and how your cube actually performs. I would just like to take this moment to thank my Patreons of the channel. I can't thank you enough for the help and support that you're giving me. If you'd like to do the same, head over to patreon.com/lifebegins@20, and there'll be a link in the description below for that as well, where there are plenty of rewards to choose from. With your support, we can really push to make this channel even better. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for new videos every Tuesday and Friday. With your support, we can really help this channel to grow. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.